Behold, my glorious supporter, Lord Rusty, has requested some discussion about trade unions. Rusty says, thanks again for giving regular patrons a free parlay last month, as well as suspending our payments. You are absolutely welcome. You done well earned it, I gotta say. Thank you so much for your support. Joke's on you, though, okay? I think sick pay is incredibly important and you should get paid even if you take a break for your health. And on that note, please do a parlay on trade unions. Epic segue. Like, just legendary segue. Why you think they've declined in recent years and what people should do about this fact. If covered by the scope of a parlay video, your opinion on Jurg from the Slingshot channel's plan to make a YouTuber union would be interesting too. I'm glad you included that because I know almost nothing about trade unions, because they're not really a thing in our industry, which is a huge problem. I will talk mostly about that because it's the only way I can answer this question. But just a quick note about something you asked that I know very little about, but I do have one thought about. Why do you think they've declined in recent years? I didn't know they had, but one thing that occurs to me is social media presence. Things are more transparent now, which in some cases makes abuse a little bit more difficult because there's like a PR disaster behind every door, that kind of thing. There are many industries where this doesn't work at all, like YouTube, but for some it does. And so I wonder if sometimes it's considered to be less necessary, or maybe in a negative way, like the company acts like it's less necessary and doesn't allow it or something. I don't know. Again, I know hardly anything about trade unions, so I don't know. But that's a thought I had, was maybe just things being more transparent. Everybody carrying around a camera connected to the internet in their pocket makes general abuse a little bit less possible than it has been in the past. But it has complicated things. I know there isn't like necessarily that much less abuse in the workplace. It's just changed, of course, but I do think that's relevant, so I thought I'd bring it up. Your YouTuber union, YouTube stuff. This is a good excuse for me to nerd out about my YouTube interest nerdery. I'm going to talk about Twitch too. Let's talk about YouTube first. So yeah, the problem with YouTube is that making a business to compete with YouTube, like you could, there's no reason you can't, is hard in a way that you can't really solve with laws, like, is how I'm going to start answering this. Because part of this question is like, why does YouTube have a monopoly? Trade unions protect workers' rights to some degree. Protecting workers' rights is less necessary the less of a monopoly a business has, because the less of a monopoly there is, the more you could work somewhere else. So if working conditions are not good, you can more or less readily get a different job. So that's how I would word it, as someone who knows nothing legally about trade unions or workers' rights, because I have none, basically. That's not entirely true, but you get the point. YouTube is a problem, then, because it has a complete monopoly, and the monopoly doesn't really have anything to do with, like, someone could make a competitor to YouTube. The problem is logistically what you would need for that. YouTube is based on reach, longevity, people noticing the name, being familiar with the name. Google's resources, it being made by Google, is like already the whole problem in a nutshell. But the biggest problem is just how much server space you need to host videos. You have to have some deep pockets to make a competitor to YouTube, which means it's not like you could pass a law being like, oh, you can't have a monopoly. It's like, well, what are you going to do? Confiscate their server space? You see what I'm saying? It's a like, it's an objective difficulty. It's physically hard to make a YouTube clone, right? Because you just need a lot of servers to have the video. That's not the only problem, of course, but I'm just giving you an example of how there's something about YouTube you can't just say you can't do that. You can for a lot of it, but for some of it you kind of can't. And that makes it really difficult to have there be competition. That makes YouTube pretty much the only game in town for what it's doing. If you want to make videos on the internet that are not very short and have them lead to a growth in popularity, YouTube is the option. There isn't really any reason to do it anywhere else. except that you'd want to, because YouTube is not a nice place to work. But even then, a lot of the problem with the way the algorithm works, which I will try very hard not to take over this video, a lot of those problems are the nature of an algorithm. Videos that are attention grabbing should be more popular in a way. And if you want them not to be, you kind of have to design an entirely different platform. And we just explained why that is a difficult thing to do. Also, having people need to make videos that are eye-catching or attention-grabbing, that's a good way to strain for a certain type of quality. The person has to have thought about making the video hold people's attention most of the time for a video to do well, which is not quality, but it is some metric for detecting that a video is going to be good at something, holding the viewer's attention. You see what I'm saying? And since you can't really strain for any other quality metric, I mean, YouTube could hyper emphasize likes, but then people would just, even more than they already do, ask you to smash that like button. It's interesting. If you look at my videos, I don't ask people to do that. I actually have a better average like ratio than most channels that do ask people to do that, because people just like have an intellectual relationship with the video most of the time. That encourages people to bother pressing the like button. And I think a lot of people that constantly hear people saying press the like button, just press the like button. And so I end up getting those people's likes and people who otherwise wouldn't have liking it, which is probably why my videos have a fair amount of likes on them per person viewing them. But that's a really good example of the nature of the problem. Is it's like you have to either be doing the thing that is the metagame on YouTube or benefiting from it, or you cannot be successful. And I think that's true for the most part. You either have to get an audience by doing the thing that succeeds on YouTube, or you have to get an audience that exists because people do the thing that you do to succeed on YouTube, and then you could maybe get that audience. One or the other. I have never seen someone succeed with any other method. If you look at any YouTube channel you watch, you can probably put it in one of those categories, which is too bad. You can't really have a channel that's focused on literally only quality and giving the people exactly what they want. That just doesn't really work. You have to make some concessions for the videos being relatively general or kind of focused on a certain type of person and not something that you need to watch a ton of other videos to get, right? Every new video has to be somewhat discoverable, that whole thing. Anyway, I said I wouldn't make it get devoured by YouTube algorithm stuff. That was me attempting that. Jurg, if you're not familiar with the Slingshot channel, you should go watch the Swingshot channel. the Slingshot channel. It's fun. You should go watch it. The guy who makes it worked or is working with a trade union, a group. The name is on the tip of my tongue. IG Metal, I think. That is very pro workers' rights. I don't know a lot about this. This is just what I read. That wants to create a sort of YouTuber's union, a sort of workers' union for YouTubers, meaning that YouTube can't just, have you do contract work or be an employee, which you basically are. They argue legally, you're basically an employee of YouTube, but they don't give you benefits. They don't give you consistent pay. They don't give you, a big thing is any transparency. Another problem with YouTube is that it feels like you're being evaluated on your performance, but not being told, which is illegal in some way that I don't understand because I'm not a lawyer. Those are problems that could be pursued. I have high hopes for this in the future. I don't mean to be pessimistic. I actually did sign up for the YouTubers Union group for what it's worth years ago, not recently, years ago, but for what it's worth, I'm totally on board, but I don't have high hopes for this iteration. I think it's going to take a decade, a block of time of transition for people to understand that this is a real job. To me, the thermometer for this is really news. If you keep hearing news stories where it's supposed to be like newsworthy or surprising that people do this for a living, I guess we're not there yet. That means it's so few people understand what's going on that there probably isn't the critical mass of people needed to get it to be more of a public issue that people really care about. This reminds me in a funny way of the problem in Inazuma, the Wish Hunt Decree. This is not really a spoiler. This is the general introductory lore for Inazuma, that people's visions are getting confiscated. And one of the characters explains that the problem is most people don't have a vision. So most people don't care. Like, their relationship with it is, yeah, I mean, they might think it's bad, they might think it's good, but they're just kind of apathetic. And that's how a lot of people feel about this too. Like, it just isn't relevant to them. It doesn't matter to them. And it's true, it doesn't, you know. Even for me, even for all of you, a lot of you are people that are really caring, kind people. And I really appreciate that and feel that when I talk to all of you. And a lot of you almost shouldn't care that much about this, because my strategy, my business approach, is to offload as much of the being employed by YouTube or Twitch, which we'll get to in a minute, to being employed by you, to have the person that is paying me the most of the money be the person whose interests most closely align with mine. That's the goal, because that will make me and you the happiest. And also, if I want to do something I like for a living, it will make me the most money relative to doing the thing I actually want. I'll be able to do the thing I want to do as closely as possible while making the most amount of money for doing that thing as possible, because I'll be doing it for the people who want the thing I want as closely as possible. So I'm not just being nice. It's how I want to live my life. It does make a certain kind of sense as long as it works. We'll find out soon. But yeah, I guess that's most of what I have to say about YouTube. I'm going to talk about Twitch briefly, as a little second part closer. Twitch has kind of a different problem. There isn't really this algorithmic nightmare to untangle with Twitch, but there is the nature of Twitch as a platform. It's simpler, which means it's less prone to adaptation. You can't really not stream consistently on Twitch. There just isn't really a way to make that work. People will move on, which is fine, but not for you, the person streaming. They will forget. For people unlike me that don't have like a really close-knit audience, who really focuses on individuals and are more just like a general person streaming on Twitch, there's nothing wrong with that. Not trying to pass a value judgment, although I have no desire to be doing what those people are doing. I don't think it sounds good or fun or pleasant. I think it's a mistake, sure, but lots of people take a different approach to their business like mine, and that's perfectly fine. But it has its disadvantages, like you hitting the mic more often than I do, I guess. And one of those disadvantages is that, no exaggeration, your entire audience will forget you exist if you take a break for like more than 2 weeks, more than a week, some people have suggested. The number of views that people who stream consistently lose by taking even a small break is shocking. It's staggering. And it's been really humbling for me to have taken a month break that I wasn't restful at all because I had way too much stuff to do, but I desperately needed to take. I at least wasn't even worse. You know, I came out of it having had time to do what I needed to do rather than being really stressed the whole time, which helped. It wasn't restful, but it wasn't anti-restful. That's just impossible for most people. For most people on Twitch, it's like your career is basically restarted if you do that. And for me, the audience size didn't really change that much, which is really flattering. So thanks for remembering that I exist. I would hope so. I mean, in my defense, or I guess, you know, the reason I had some confidence is like, you can't get what you're getting from my stream from someone else. So, you know what I mean? It's like a little less possible that people will just move on because you kind of can't. Or the people that do move on are people that didn't really want what I wanted in the first place. And so it's fine. I like entertaining people just because it's entertaining people, but it's not necessary for those people to go to me. So that's fine if they move on. But that's particular to me. It is a huge problem that when you stream on Twitch, there isn't really even anything. Again, it's kind of like it's not even a legal issue in a way. It's not like a law could say, oh, Twitch, you know, make it so people can take a real break. Twitch would be like, by what? Mind controlling their audience? You see what I mean? It's impossible. Like you can't. The way Twitch is set up, there's no way to make taking a break not be punishing. You just can't do it. And that's a fatal problem for streaming, that there's just no real good way around. Unless people go into cryosleep or something, or notification systems get much better than they currently are, people are going to lose you, a lot of people, when you take a break that you will need to take. And there isn't really a way around that. A lot of my time doing YouTube and Twitch for a living so far has been focused on figuring out how to have a good life doing these things as a job. Because in a way, I mean, the reason I'm doing these things really is because they're the most direct route to getting what you want in life. You're alive because you want things, and I want to get the things I want as soon as and as directly as possible. And I think that doing this for a living, if successful, would give me the best compromise, the best fit. I would be able to make money doing literally the exact thing I wanted to do for a living, and as few additional things that I don't like doing as possible, while making the most possible relevant people happy for doing that thing, and being beholden to someone who can't fire me, or well, you can all fire me at the same time, but that's pretty unlikely unless I do terribly. So as long as I do the thing I said I was going to do, I basically can't be fired. It's kind of immune-ish to changes in the world. There were people who said, you know, COVID-19, I can't give you as much money every month, which, by the way, thank you for letting me know. It's totally fine. I understand. But you'd be surprised how few people did that. And I actually made more money during COVID-19 because more of you felt like, oh, you're giving me entertainment during this time. I want more entertainment, so I'm willing to pay for that, which I, again, really appreciate. It's fine either way, but, you know, doing what you're able is really nice. And that's really good. You see how that's a great fit. But the problem, of course, is that there is this sort of issue with YouTube and Twitch. It's just that to me, it's a solvable issue. Whereas like getting fired or like just work being bad, like driving in a car to work every day is not fun. Eliminating that from your life is great. Yeah, like it's just not possible for a lot of people. I'm fortunate to be in a situation where it is. So why waste that opportunity? But there are problems. I just think they're solvable. You know, there is a way to use YouTube that is not toxic. It's just a pretty specific way. There is a way to stream on Twitch that doesn't get you exhausted and burnt out every single time. It's just a pretty specific way of you can't just stream, you know. To put it a different way, that way isn't, oh, it started as a thing that was just for fun and then it was paying a lot per month, so I just made it my job. And it's hard, but the way I'm going to finish this discussion about unions is that I think before there's a group of people legally defending people who do this for a living, those people need to take more responsibility for their own situation. When people complain about having a toxic community, but didn't put any effort into making their community not be toxic, and they make videos about a subject that it's easily logically understandable would attract toxic people, I do not have a lot of sympathy, and I don't think that lawyers should either. Like, that's their fault. I'm sorry. There are ways to change it. If people do, I would love to help, but it's not, I think, and this might be surprising to you because a YouTuber's union would benefit me so much probably, but I really don't think that most people doing this have really earned like support and professional respect because they don't do their thing in a way that is intentional is the biggest problem. I wouldn't say respectable, like it's fine, I guess, but intentional. A lot of the problems that people who do this for a living have, they just kind of stumbled into. They didn't really try to detect those problems. They just sort of did it. And it is running a business. Like you have to take responsibility for that. I will complain about YouTube and Twitch being the way they are, but like I got myself into this because I wanted to solve those things. I'm not surprised that those things are a problem. I went into this looking to tackle those issues. It's unfair, but like life is unfair. I don't know. That doesn't make it good, but it's hardly unexpected. Come on. I don't know. So I hope that sentiment, that's kind of a word cloud of things about that because I'm not sure what else to say about it. Yeah, I do think there's an aspect of this where people need to act in good faith about the way they do things as well. And if they're going to put themselves in a situation where they're basically monetizing something unsustainable, that's really their fault. That's not our fault. A lot of people who get videos demonetized everywhere, it's like, maybe you should be able to like swear about stuff and still make money off of it. And to be fair, that actually has gotten a little better on YouTube lately. Because you can say videos have profanity in them and then YouTube handles them accordingly. Anecdotally, people have made some money off those videos instead of them being randomly demonetized. So it's really not better because that's still very unclear. But in terms of numbers, if you have a channel like that, there is a tool there for you that where there wasn't before, which is good. I don't want to give no credit where credit's due. That's a one part of a step in the right direction. So fair enough, YouTube. Like, that's actually pretty sad that that's all you can muster, but it's something, right? That being said, though, my point is those people did choose to run a business based on deprecating humor. Was that the best idea? You see what I'm trying to say? I understand it's, you know, it's hard, but when you say, you know, or like a lot of alcohol channels, for example, is it a good idea to link something that is not good for your health to your livelihood? Like, you have to drink to make money? Is that a good idea? It's not a good idea. I'm not trying to be facetious. Like, it's obviously a bad idea. I'm trying to be facetious. It's a bad idea. And so I do think to some degree, there's an entanglement problem here where many people doing the career are being pretty irresponsible about the way that they're doing it. And when I say irresponsible, I just mean they're not taking ideological responsibility for it. It's like when something bad happens, they really could have seen it. You would be expected to see it coming. That's what I'm trying to say. But a lot of people don't. They act like, oh, this terrible thing just happened to me. And it's like, no, that's something you were asking for when you did this for a living. That being said, there are a lot of people to whom those bad things happen who weren't asking for it, and that's not reasonable. You know, if I use YouTube's rating system and say a game is about video game guns, and it gets demonetized for being about real guns by a human reviewer, and I protest it and they reject it, that is not fair. I did not walk into that. There's millions of people making videos about video game guns, and your system lets me say it's about that, and I said it was about that, and you lied that your robot wasn't a robot and demonetized the video. That is not okay. That is not my responsibility. That's the point at which you call in the lawyer and say, yeah, this is unjust. You need to give this person some kind of economic remuneration. You need to pay me for destroying my channel's ability to perform financially because it wasn't my fault. That's something you did mistakenly. YouTube, of course, hates the idea of this, and the single reason is greed. They would lose a lot of money because they rightly owe a lot of people on the platform a lot of money for heinously damaging their ability to exist the way they were told they could. That's a problem. I'm just saying that a lot of people doing this for a living probably did do something wrong, and I'm not sure those people are suddenly worthy of being economically compensated just because they chose to make a channel on a touchy subject. You see what I'm saying? Which, again, that sounds consumer unfriendly. I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus. I'm just saying I think that that should be part and parcel of the discussion about more fair treatment for people doing good work. That's obviously good, but it should be a two-way street. There are lots of people on YouTube that need to do better work as well if they want to be dealt into that. And I think that'll probably be a thing. Like, people joining a union like this will need to sign, you know, a thing. I hate to say this, but to end things out, I feel bad about Jurg because the Slingshot channel is legitimately kind of an irresponsible channel. Like, he is teaching you to make things that are dangerous, and there are some liability issues on that channel. That is not the most straightforwardly clean channel for spearheading a union where, like, YouTube has done all the things wrong. It's not me. You're borderline making firearms, so I don't know. Again, I'm not saying that Jurg shouldn't be the person doing that. He's doing a great job as far as I can tell. I'm not saying he's not worthy of the normal workers' rights that we're all worthy of. He obviously is. I'm just saying I do think that it's a more complicated issue than just YouTube bullying the poor creator. I think a lot of the time the creator has some answering to do as well. That's all I'm trying to say. As we give Jurg and channels like that those rights, they do also have to be responsible for the fact that they're encouraging the audit. Well, okay, they're not, but you understand what I'm trying to say. Like, there's some liability questionableness there that people should have to answer for. There is a cost to having a union. We have to leave this sort of Wild West where you can do kind of anything. And it's like, is this really that responsible? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. Nobody gives me any rights, so I can just do whatever I want. You see, having a union is not a bad thing, but there would be people who probably wouldn't want to join it or you get that idea. So I think that's the most interesting part of this. I hope you thought it was too. Thanks for asking. Obviously a very important topic to me and my own.